Start the proceedings for the day. May I request the speakers to please come on the dais. Five secret ingredients for successful business. I'm sure everybody is eager to hear the celebrated speakers of the day. But before I hand over the session to Sanjay Bhaiya, let me just briefly tell you what was the logic for having a session like this. So, VI, as you all may know, that has many forums. It has a marketing forum, it has a finance forum, it's an energy forum, where we talk about practical day-to-day things that concern our businesses. We talk about how to save energy, we talk about how to boost our sales. These are things which deliver tangible benefits which are calculable in terms of revenues and profits. But we were actually a bit surprised that nobody is talking about things like, hey, I am regularly doing a workout in the morning and that's helped me become a little more productive. Or no one is saying that, I maintain a diary and it has helped me become a little more organized and structured in my thought. So, are these things not important? Because if you look at any successful businessman globally, and if you read them, if you hear them speak, they are always talking about things like discipline, things like punctuality, things like politeness, humility, determination in the face of adversity. So by this program, it is our intention that maybe we can hear out two really successful entrepreneurs from Nagpur and figure out what are those 5 things which they deem important for the success of their business. To begin our program for the day, may I request our Vice President Aditya Sarafji to welcome our guests with a floral bouquet.
I'm not a guest.
Our choice for the moderator was very difficult today. It was a very tough call to take whether we must have Sanjay Bhaiya as a speaker or we must have him as a moderator, because he himself is such a big believer and practitioner of habits. I've had a lot of interaction with him over the last 4 weeks to organize this program. And I've discovered 2 very important things about it, or 2 important habits of his. One is fitness. I think a lot of us know that he gets up every day in the morning to do yoga at 7. And once I asked him to meet me at 6, he said I have to go for a walk at 6:30. So let's meet tomorrow. And second thing that I learned about him is that he is also a big learner. Let us all get together to congratulate him. He's completed his doctorate yesterday. So he's on this note, I'll request Sanjay Bhaiya to take over the program.
Thank you so much, Pratik, for those really kind words. It's actually, when we were planning this program, there were quite a few things in mind, as this was a knowledge forum and we wanted nothing theoretical at all. We wanted something which could be really put into use, say from right after you go from here, an hour from now, you could use something out of it. So that was one. 2, we were all impressed by this book, 7 Habits, but we didn't want to repeat the title again. So we tweaked it a little and we said 7 things, okay, which we want, 5 things that we want people to identify and be able to, which was habits or attributes which were immediately implementable. And 3, the most important, we wanted the right kind of people. We didn't want a big panel here, 5-8 people sitting here and deliberating, etc. We wanted to pick 2 people or 3 people at the most who really have made it. Number 1, that was one criteria. And when I say made it, not like I have only the grammar part of it and khali hai piche, वैसा नहीं. Okay, because I am into advertising, so the first thing I do is build my own brand. पीछे कुछ हो नहीं हो सेट के कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ता. But two people who really are internationally recognizable. No. And three, they hadn't got to be the usual suspects of Nagpur. So nothing wrong with that, because there are people who are very successful, but they are found in every forum, either giving out their stories or being interviewed or being made the speakers, etc. So we didn't want. So one name that came to my mind immediately was Arun Bhiya's name, because I have been working very closely with him for the past 25 years or so, more than professionally. Personally, I respect him a lot, because if there is someone one has to be proud of in Nagpur, it is Arun Bhiya, number one. And two was, of course, Shashank. And both these people are not as visible on the Nagpur's so-called speaker scene as they ought to be. So the idea was to have these kind of people. And then we didn't want the My Story format, because that's Taika program ka basics, how I made it, or yourstory.com, how I made it big. There what happens is you can relate to a lot of things, and it goes on, and then it is left to the audience to pick up, what is implementable, what he did was right. We wanted not to do that homework also. We wanted to leave it to the speakers. So you decide, over the period of maybe 15 years that you work, 25 years that you work, if there were only 5 things to pick, which you believe were your personal habits in a way, which saw you go through that curve and be where you are today, what would those 5 things be? And how can we put them to use? That was the clear format that we therefore identified. So we wouldn't you don't tell us your story, Shashank. I hope. So that's the question that Shashank was telling me before this program, that I've got my story written outside. That look, you're going to get a surprise now. So we want your story, all right, but you'll have to make it crisp. But then we want you to identify very honestly the 5 things that you think were your inherent qualities or habits, or you adopted them and made them your habit. Sometimes it does happen. I'm not believe me, I'm not an early riser. Pratik may have said something, but I'm not an early riser at all. Left to myself, some Sundays when I don't want to go for yoga and decide not to, I can sleep till noon, and I do sleep till noon. So because I wanted to do it, so I made it a point to get up every morning at 5:36, somewhere between that. So you have to take on those habits. So yes, they may not have been your natural inherent qualities, but you, looking at what you wanted to achieve, you developed, adapted, and inherited them inside yourself. So we want them to identify that and then elaborate on that. And of course, later as a part of the format, we will definitely have question answers where you all can directly interact with the 2 speakers here. So I think we will, okay, and again, the 2 people that are going to speak come from diametrically opposite sides. I hope Arunbhiya doesn't mind it. One is the generation before, meaning, yes, currently very active too, Karmi Yogi, but yes, traditional industry, infrastructure in terms of industrial, aluminium, etc. The other side, we have someone younger, IT, so again, diametrically opposites, both in terms of age, the kind of industry that we're talking about, etc. So you get both ends of the spectrum talking to you at the same time. All right. So first, of course, we will have Arun Bhiya here. So if someone is so successful, I'm sure the foundation is equally strong. So Arun Bhiya did his BTech Chemical Engineering from IIT BHU. Then he worked for 2 companies for a very short span, 77 to 81, with Shriram Chemicals Industries in Kota and Dunlop India Limited, Calcutta. But the true story starts after that. Once he finished and he wanted to do something on his own, startups were not fashionable words then. Okay, anyone going out on his own and starting up an industry, probably after being in an MNC like Dunlop, people would have, I'm sure, looked at you with surprise. Why do you want to quit such a lucrative job? So Mr. Bhattari set up MMP Industries Limited, formerly known as Maharashtra Metal Powders Limited, in the year 1983 in Bhandara district, in technical collaboration with, I cannot pronounce this, so I'm going to say ETAVL Belgium. Is that okay? Because there's a Belgian name, I'm sure I'll mispronounce it. MMPL is engaged in the manufacturing of aluminium powders, aluminium paste, and aluminium conductors. The company is a world leader in the segment and supplies its products across the globe. In 2016, MMP Industries Limited entered into a JV with Toyo Aluminum KK of Japan for manufacturing high-end aluminium paste. The state-of-the-art facility was inaugurated just this November 2017 under the name Toil MMP India Private Limited. In the year 85, he set up Star Circlips and Engineering Limited to cater to the growing automobile industry in India then. Star Circlips today is a leading name in automotive industry all over the world again. The company set up a state-of-the-art manufacturing unit in 2005 and technical collaboration with, again, a foreign name, CJ Oppi of Germany. I hope I pronounced it right. To cater to the German automotive market. So all your Audis and Mercedes probably carry that product. So we have Mr. Arun Bhandari, currently the chairman and managing director of both MMP Industries Limited and Star Circlips and Engineering. He is also the managing director of Toil MMP India Private Limited. So first, sir, you with a brief story and then 5 qualities which you think on hindsight were critical in getting you where you are today. Thank you so much.
First of all, good afternoon to everyone. Good early evening to you. So, thank you, EIA. Thank you, Sanjay, for this introduction and this invitation. It's a privilege to be here and speak a few words about my last 35 years experience. At the outset, let me submit, speaking about one's own progress, call it success if you like, is something I'm personally uncomfortable with. But a request was made to my son Mayank by Pratik, and you all know it becomes difficult at times to say no to young, pleasant personalities for fear of letting down the younger generation. So here I am to share some of my experiences. What I'm about to speak about is a little different than the context that Sanjay described. I'm from the manufacturing field. I'll limit my experiences to the manufacturing arena. This is not strictly a principle that does not apply to the other sectors of any business. I think more or less the principles apply everywhere else. But some of you may not find resonance with what I'm about to talk about. So please excuse me. I think we all agree that a light age, success is a relative term. To a 40-year-old, 60 is very old. And to an 85-year-old, 60 is very young. I think it is so with success also. How do you define it? Who can define it? Since we are limiting our discussion to entrepreneurial abilities, this question is all the more difficult to answer, in my view. I can therefore only share my experiences over the last 35 years in industry. I will limit myself, as I said, to manufacturing, but I believe everyone will find resonance with some of the principles we talk about. I will speak on progress rather than success. Progress in some ways is measurable, success is not, and I strongly believe in that. Progress sometimes cannot be described absolutely, but it's certainly a mixture, a healthy mixture of ethical work, heart on the job, a focused mind, and plenty of good luck and fortune. So how did it all begin? A graduate engineer trainee in the DCM group, where in 1 year, the value of sheer physical work was inculcated in us trainees. This was in the year 1977. And our BTech degrees' utter worthlessness was fully exposed because nothing we learned in university seemed to apply even remotely to the industrial chemicals work environment. That's the absolute truth. It is the truth even today. That was followed by a 3.5-year stint in Dunlop, India, designing, installing and servicing conveyor belting for the coal and iron ore mines. And this was one of the best exposures to life in the field. That was the time that I realized that engineers are a valued lot by demanding customers who themselves work in the field. More important, Dunlop was a 100% British company at that time, 78, 81 onwards. And it was my first experience of what ethical, customer-oriented manufacturing was all about. The principles of complete fairness at display, ethics in all business practices was a fundamental education which remains an everlasting lesson, should be in everyone's life, but it's unfortunately not taught even today in schools, universities, much less in management institutes. So I'll now come, this is the context of which brief was provided to you. We talk about 5 issues which I think are important in the manufacturing arena. Point number one, is to build credibility, trust, and goodwill. We set up aluminum powder and aluminum paste industry, MMP Industries, in technical collaboration with a Belgian company. Its name is AVL Metal Powders now. And the cooperation continues after 35 years also. So my first quality for progressive entrepreneurship is to cooperate with associates with openness, long-term organizational progress as the key mover, and certainly do all personally to keep the cooperation ongoing and spirited. This Belgian cooperation is purely a sales and technical cooperation with not an iota of a legal framework, but is professional, accommodative, and brings to the table advantages to both sides. And permanently so. In other words, a commitment by both parties to honor each other's understanding at all times. This is never easy even for a short duration, but we have been together for 35 years. And I can safely say that both parties have never let each other down, even when the times were not so good for each other. So being good is good business is a motto which results in sustained progress. Sincerity and honesty of purpose opens many doors and opportunities, and this is not a cliche. One must have a strong belief in this and practice this with conviction and confidence. What was the result of this 35 years experience in MSP? We have our Japanese friends, Mr. Fudawa, Mr. Kawabe, the managing director is not here. We got together in 2016, and we now have a Japanese joint venture functioning in Nagpur. All because of goodwill, trust, and what have you. We have a similar cooperation in Star Circuits with a German company, and I personally credit that company with Star's progress as much as our managers and the industrial management practices they follow. Some of my colleagues are here. It's credit to them. This association with Germany is 12 years old. It is two-way. It's not a supplier-customer relationship only. This is a very professional cooperation where both companies, Star Circuits and Seeger Orbis, open their finances to each other, develop products in strong design cooperation with each other, and in many ways make each other interdependent to an extent that both companies, I think, are now indispensable to each other. That credibility and reputation built over years in focused manufacturing practices and service has enabled our German counterparts to promote Star products in Europe to Mercedes, Volkswagen, Renault, BMW, General Motors as Indian products made by Star with a German quality audit and an Indian optimum pricing. It surely is win-win, as any business should be. The result: some Star products are purchased by these very companies for their other locations in China, USA, Singapore, and the brand Star commands a premium pricing with a preferred supplier tax. Even in China, we have a customer who buys 100% from us. Summarizing this first most important point, The others are not so long, so don't worry about that. Establish long-term credibility of your company through honesty of purpose. Do not look for short-term advantages and persevere with patience and trust. Don't just sell products alone, sell products with services. The second point, management by delegation. An owner is nothing if his employees and managers do not work in a cohesive and harmonious relationship. There is never, and there should never be a need for anyone to remind anyone else as to who the owner is. There is a saying that there are no bad students, only bad teachers. I believe the same holds true of a company. There are no bad employees, only bad owners. It is the unambiguous responsibility of the owner and the team managers to work with transparency, fearlessness, and a sense of feeling for your employees that builds their own self-respect. In my experience, there are many instances that a sincere, heartfelt word that enhances the self-respect of your employees goes a long way to motivate them. And it is not only money that makes team members loyal. It is my conviction that a relaxed, respectful workplace can build immeasurable loyalty and attachment. It has been our endeavor to build this sort of a culture, and more often than not, this is felt by some outsiders as well. This bonhomie within the organization is something we must be proud of. And I think it's one of the key determinants of not only professional progress, but steady personal progress as well. I'll take a minute to talk about the workforce in the company, which means the labor force. This is the subject of endless discussions everywhere. A harmonious and progressive relationship with the workforce has to be built over years, and in our experience, labor disputes, strikes, lockouts, any other friction are avoidable, and the responsibility for this lies clearly to a very, very large extent with the owners and the management. If a firm and kind hand is extended, and it should be, the workforce is more likely to be a very good asset, and it is then our further responsibility to incentivize them to be more productive. Sure, incidents will always happen, but if the workforce is understood that there is fairness and firmness from the management, they will reciprocate. No industry can run on the basis of dominance, and I think this is a lesson which is true for all medium, small, and large enterprises. I need to make a special mention. While process and product quality is everyone's responsibility, empowerment of the quality assurance department should be a special focus of attention in any industry, whether it is infrastructure sector, it's an auto sector, a chemical sector. This is something that we practice, and I think it's something that I'd like to share. So summarizing this point, a team is not a group of people who work together. A team is a group of people who trust each other. Then it is easy and comfortable to delegate and wait for good results. And as owners, be available with your people all the time, good times, bad times. While the team is accountable, we the owners are always responsible. The credit goes to the team. Be in the forefront to accept all the limits. Another point, number 3, have an international perspective. It's important to have an international perspective, especially in the industrial sector. This opens up new horizons on a permanent basis and vastly enhances the market for your products. Especially, we have believed in aligning our companies with other international manufacturing companies rather than distributors. Manufacturers have immense respect for each other, understand each other's manufacturing problems and strengths, and stick to each other as long-term generational partners. The constant exchange of information and ideas is beneficial to all, and these intangible benefits are fundamentally the bedrock of continuous growth of their mutual business. Financial institutions and bankers feel more reassured, especially in the SME sector, when companies have long-standing international connections and in any case, wider market penetration is the surest way to growth and progress. Summarizing this point, number 3, having an international perspective creates value, enhances markets, and provides stability from the volatility of the home markets. This will create immense respect and trust for your enterprise, and these are key issues which determine relative progress. Point number 4, belief in steady and stable progress. This is personally something which is of great importance. For me, growth for the sake of growth is a strict no. Working on merits and creating a future plan based on ground realities rather than unrealistic optimism is a better way forward as far as our group is concerned. Being an engineer with no finance training has also helped to a large extent. The words steady and stable are unglamorous, but think about it carefully. When you do your best steadily, what you plan now, you will reap the harvest later. To be steady and stable itself requires a commitment, and that is that your enterprise, big or small does not matter, is helping in the building of your nation. So persevere with patience and fulfill your responsibilities is something I would always tell my management team. Relentless. The last point, number 5, which is very, very important for manufacturing, invest in modernization and process upgradation. The quality of your process determines the quality of your products. Invest in modernization, work towards digital transformation, process improvements, focus on total quality management, TQM, TPM, and improvement methods like Kaizen and 5S. In Star Circlets, we are working on Industry 4.0 systems, which will enable digital production control, inventory management, production planning, efficiencies, and effective customer service. As you all know, cost and quality are now passive because they are given. But what counts is delivery performance. Do all you can to reduce WIP by process efficiencies and have a single point agenda of meeting customer delivery schedule. Be satisfied that customers give you ratings of 95% on delivery schedules, but internally invest in automation and digital interfaces to work on meeting delivery targets of 100% all the time. A customer is happiest when goods are received on time, every time. Investing in modernization and strategizing for SMEs looks to be a difficult call in view of the investments involved and may not make immediate sense from the return on investment point of view, but please try and pursue this direction and the true value will be felt in the years ahead. This is our belief. I will end by saying that leadership requires another skill. This is a readiness to look personally foolish, a readiness to discuss half-baked ideas, since most fully baked ideas start out in that form, a total honesty, a readiness to admit you got it wrong. Also, not to forget, the only place where progress comes before work is in the dictionary. These aspects which we talked about are especially true, I repeat, in the manufacturing sector to which I belong, but the principles are true in all business sectors. Thank you once again for the invitation and your patience. If I was in your place right now, I too would be yawning. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Arun. And the last one, is not true. I didn't see a single yawn, and I saw only attentive eyes and ears. Thank you so much. You have these 5 qualities, I believe. You've jotted them down somewhere since you have the